Yes, so welcome everyone and welcome to the panelists. I'm so glad and grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you, to share with all of you projects and practices and ideas about this theme, how to raise compassionate, tolerant, responsible citizens, and so how to pass from classrooms to communities, how to build communities in the classroom. Uh, for those who do not know 6 Seconds, well, we are a leading organization in emotional intelligence and social emotional learning. And I am the social impact manager at 6 Seconds Europe. And over these years, we really focused our action on youth well-being, and especially this year and in the coming years. And the purpose of everything that we do in the end is really spreading emotional intelligence and social emotional learning for all the human beings. And our care is really for the youth more than for anyone and anything else, just because as we usually say, they are probably not 100% of our of the entire population, but certainly they will be 100% of our future. And what I'd like to highlight here is that 6 Seconds over these years, as I said, designed different programs just to support youth to transform somehow the emotions, maybe unpleasant emotions that they feel living in this world now with the challenges of our time, and especially challenges like climate change. So what we designed a few years ago, and also this year we hosted during the Climate Week in New York, is this program called Climate of Emotions. And it's actually a very simple project and workshop, let's call it like that, open to the public, but especially focused and let's say designed for youth, divided into 3 phases. And this is relevant for the work that we are going to share today. The first phase is really about the power of stories, the power of storytelling when we share our experience with climate change, maybe in a moment of our life, maybe in the nature or in our urban spaces. And after that, there's a second activation about a collective, creative experience of transformation of the emotions. And this is done through imagination. So we use art, storytelling, and creativity and imagination to transform what we feel and what youth feel. And finally, we reflect also through meditative mindfulness and meditative practices, and we reflect with that kind of thinking that Mary Helen Imodino Yang called transcendent thinking. And there's a wonderful research she um, mm, published this year in May, I think last May, called Transcendent Thinking and Civic Reasoning. So she demonstrates that the more we work with youth, with students on their emotional, reflective, and deep, profound thinking, the more this builds in their brain their orientation to the social. So we are able to create communities, as said, of students, of youth that really care for the society. So art for the society, art for youth well-being. And this is the start of our webinar, actually. And I'd like to introduce you our panelists. The first one that will guide us through art, through poetry, is Dr. Helen Moore. And Dr. Helen Moore is a pioneering eco-poet, and she will explain us what eco-poetry is. And she's also a translator, an author, a writer, and she lives in Bristol. And she's also a lecturer, I think, right, at Gloucester University. And so she will first guide us, as I said, through this beautiful writing. So let me stop sharing and I'll leave you the stage.
Thank you so much, Ilaria, and it's so joyful for me to be part of this webinar today, and yeah, to be contributing to such inspiring work that you're doing. So I'm going to be talking a little bit later on in the webinar, more specifically about my work, and also sharing with you some courses and programs that you can access using the power of storytelling to change narratives. But what I'm going to offer right now is more of an experiential activity. And so what we're going to do is we're going to focus on our own well-being, because if we're going to support youth well-being, it's important that we begin with our own. And I'm going to lead us in a little journey guided visualization to connect with the body. And then it just be quite brief. And then out of that, if you want to, you could maybe do a little bit of writing that's creative in some way. You don't have to write a poem, but it's just to kind of allow some words to spill onto the page directly after the experience. And if you then want to, you could perhaps choose a line and put it in the chat. And we might then see if we can co-create a little group poem. No promises that it will be a great work of art, but we can try. And I will take care of that curation. So that's what we're going to do in the next 5 minutes. And I thought I'd just begin to get us into a more creative, relaxed mindset. I thought I'd read you one of my own eco poems, which is like a poem hymn to Gaia, to our great, beautiful earth. And so if you want to just close your eyes wherever you're sitting and just drop into connecting with your breath. But if you want to, just before you do that, have any writing tools to hand, maybe a notebook and a pen, so that when you come back to you know, the webinar after the guided visualization, you've got it directly to hand. So just settling into your chair, perhaps putting your bottom very firmly on the chair, having a nice straight spine. If you can, feet flat on the floor, just to be grounded, rooted with Gaia, with Mother Earth, Pachamama, however we might refer to our planet home. And just connecting with the breath, closing the eyes. And I'm going to begin by reading this poem hymn, which is called Glory Be to Gaia. Glory be to Gaia for rainbows, glaciers, and fresh snow. We honor and praise you, Gaia, mysterious blue planet, unique in this vast universe. Like your widest rivers, our hearts flow with gratitude. Glory be to Gaia for forests, valleys, and exquisite flowers. We honor and praise you, Gaia, Great Mother. Thank you for clean air and water and all the fruits and seeds manifest through your abundant power. Glory be to Gaia for birdsong, mountains, and clear lakes. We honor and praise you, Gaia, giant pulsating orb of life from which we've grown. Please help us feel our interdependence with all animal and human kin. Glory be to Gaia for millipedes, worms, and all tiny creatures. We honor and praise you, Gaia, ceaseless wheel of life. We embrace your eternal cycle, the rich soil our bodies will become, and the gift this present moment is. Glory be to Gaia for whales, phosphorescence, and fish. We honor and praise you, Gaia, planet jewel of the cosmos, sacred being infused in our DNA. Please light the spark of peace in us, that we may serve this precious life. So just keeping your awareness with your breath, your body, your feet on the floor. Noticing whatever emotions or images may be there in your being right now. Just noticing them, not making them right or wrong. Feeling a connection with our lungs, these incredible sacs of air breathing in and out without our conscious control. And bringing our awareness to the heart. Maybe you might like to place your hand on your heart and just feel this physical organ pumping blood, bringing oxygen into the body, releasing carbon dioxide. The lungs and the heart, these incredible organs working together. And at the same time, the heart, in so many different spiritual traditions, there's a sense of it as an emotional vessel, place where we feel. And just bringing our awareness to this incredible miracle of life on Earth that is also so deeply threatened right now by industrial civilization. Noticing what emotions may be rising in us as we feel that awareness. And just breathing with it, not needing to make a story of it, just noticing it, observing, being mindful of whatever's alive in us. Perhaps you have a word that's alive for you right now. What word would it be? And when you're ready, pick up your paper and pen and open your eyes and just bring your awareness to your page and write that word down. And then see if there's any other words that want to join onto that word, like beads on a necklace. Perhaps you can string a few more words that represent whatever's alive in you right now. Maybe you have an insight, maybe you have an image. Can you find language for it? And if you feel moved to, you might want to type something into the chat. Somebody's already written full of gratitude, which is really beautiful to receive. cosmic reciprocity. Wow, I love it. Oh, some lovely, lovely phrases coming. Thank you, everybody. Just keep adding them as and when you feel moved to you. And I will scroll through and note them down and see if something wants to be woven together. Looks like it could flow beautifully. And Ilaria, I'm going to hand back to you, and then
Yes.
Stefania and Jessica, and I will rejoin you with my contribution later. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. It was beautiful. I'm sure that everyone enjoyed and connected to themselves and to everything around us. So to this beautiful earth that you and Gaia, as you said, and the planet that we have and beyond the planet. So this cosmic, I love your words, Jessica, this cosmic connection. So starting from this moment, and again, we encourage you to use, you see, it was simple in a way. You can use Helen poems or other poems in the classroom and just read a poem or tell a story and ask your students to express their feelings and then connect the dots and having a reflection, a moment of reflection together. And starting from this, I'd like to introduce the two other panelists, Jessica Hampton, lecturer of English at the University of Liverpool, and also the social linguistics and professor of Italian studies, Dr. Stefania Tufi. And they produce their research and then study and work and practices also in high schools in Liverpool. So I'm so glad and honored to have you here and to hear from you directly your contribution and your project.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. I think, Stefania, would you like to say a few words about the project? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ilaria, for welcoming us and organizing this. This is amazing, and it's such an interesting kind of connection that you've envisaged to this. So I'll just spend a few minutes talking about the wider project that Jessica and I have been conducting, and I'll share my screen. Can everybody see it? Yes. So the project is called, and obviously we'll find connections with poetry as well, and Jessica will provide examples based on the project with the Liverpool schools. But just to explain what all this came from for us, professionally and personally, I've always been interested in the dynamics of the border and bordering practices. And I've done a lot of work into ethno-linguistic minorities in Italy. I don't know if you're familiar with the context, but in Italy there are several officially recognized ethno-linguistic minorities, and they tend to be scattered around borders in the north of Italy. But I've also looked at the way that we establish borders around us in settings beyond hard borders, which define our political entities, our different countries. So stemming from that, my long-time interest, I was interested in extending idea of borders and boundaries and how this becomes, from a certain perspective, an everyday practice. So taking language as central to processes of bordering, because I'm a linguist and that's my sort of life interest. how does language participate in the creation or dismantling of borders around us and boundaries? So that was a little introduction on the webpage, and you can see that it was articulated over several aspects. So if you're interested at leisure, you can look at this website that explains in detail what the project has consisted of. This is part of the University of Liverpool website. So of course, I'm not going to go into all the different sections, but I just wanted to draw your attention on this particular line, the fact that sometimes borders are internalized because we transfer our ideas about compartmentalized spaces and transform them as spaces of belonging, and also there can be spaces of inclusion and exclusion. So this is one of the questions that we wanted our students in the secondary schools to engage with. So to reflect on how we establish borders and boundaries around us, the importance of language in enacting this, and why is it that we do it, and we absolutely need to question this kind of operation, which becomes sometimes exclusive. So obviously the students, Jessica will show you that students produce some fantastic artifacts. It's here under activities. A digital exhibition is part of this section with all artifacts produced by students. And what emerged was a deeply poetic engagement, affective engagement with the world that surrounds us. So one of the boundaries that we wanted the students to question was exactly the artificial boundary between the human and the more than human. And in a Platonic way, if you want, we wanted to prompt observations about this aesthetic encounter, which is our encounter with the cosmos and with the beauty of the cosmos, and see what was going to come out of this. So thanks, Jessica. I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Stefania. That's a perfect introduction to the project, and I can now share the screen, and let me put the exhibition on first. There we go. Can everyone see? I know it's not full screen, but otherwise I lose track of what I'm doing. So this is a specific part of the exhibition that Stefania mentioned. Now, with the work that we did with the schools, we worked with 4 secondary schools in the Liverpool area, also its surrounding areas. And we worked with 4 specific groups, so 1 group of students in each school. And we visited the schools 4 times and went through the objectives of the project. We explained why we thought the project was important, and why we thought that working with students to co-create this knowledge about these spaces of inclusion and exclusion in schools was important. So we really set up to collaborate with students as if they were research assistants on the project. So it's this idea of co-creation that informed the methodology. And students therefore had their own little booklet where they collected their data, they went about the school, and they took photos of the natural world that they could encounter in school. And then they were asked to express their eco-cultural identity. So thinking about all of the kind of heritage, cultural beliefs, anything that spoke to them, that has been transmitted down to them through family and friends, and simply living in the place that they were brought up, to think about what they can express, what they can create that encapsulates part of their identity. And this was something that we could see that students were not used to. They were quite surprised that they were asked to reflect on such personal aspects of their identity. So already showing, highlighting how students may not have these opportunities to think about who they are and what beliefs and values they hold in a space such as the school, and how much they really enjoyed being creative. It didn't matter whether they could write write poems or draw or paint. They really, really enjoyed this creative aspect of the project. So we created this digital exhibition, and so when you land on the homepage, this is what you're greeted by. All of the images in the digital exhibition come from the artifacts that students created or the photos that they took. And then in the exhibition, one of our PhD students that collaborated on the project organized some of the artifacts in thematic components. And because Helen started off this webinar with a beautiful kind of a poetic activity and a poem of her own, I would like to share with you one of the poems, or maybe two of the poems that the students created. And please imagine this being done in a 50-minute lesson. They didn't have any preparation. They didn't know what they were doing. They just came from a different lesson, sat down, were given prompts, and off they went. In 50 minutes, this is what they were able to produce. So this is a student who identify herself as mainly from Liverpool. So all of the whole artifact is about Liverpool as her identity. And she says, "This is my home, a Scouser at heart." All of it is a work of art, the city, the magic, the beauty of Liverpool. This has claimed my heart, the city where I feel at home, the city I grew up in. I never want to leave, dropping down the Mersey on midnight tide, looming the docks like a thief we glide. That eternal live a beat, the place that I forever wish to be, live a bird. And for those who are not familiar with Liverpool, I know.
Really beautiful.
For those who are not familiar with Liverpool, Scouser is a word that is used to define a specific kind of identity, or Liverpudlian identity. Not everyone in Liverpool identifies as a Scouser, but this student does. And the liver bird is kind of a symbol of the city based on a real bird, the cormorant, but that has become kind of like a mythical animal for the city of Liverpool. And you can see all of the other iconic uses that she draws from to create that Liverpool-placed identity. That we have one here on, I think probably more on the natural aspects of Liverpool, but another one that I wanted to share here with you is from this student. Again, beautiful drawing around it. This student has a Kurdish background, and she writes, "Where is Kurdistan? Is it the flag, the one with red, green and yellow, or is it the one with foods like dolma, kafta and brane? Or is it the one with glittery ball gowns, or the one with destinations so great like mountains, forests, valleys and rivers? Yes, it's all of those and more. Yes, Kurdistan, my home, my heart and my life." So as you can see, these opportunities, these activities really did.
Yeah, and Jessica, let me just add here, because I think, all of you there, when we give the opportunity to students to express themselves through something that they really tune in, they connect with, that it's really at the core, at the heart of what they love, and it was just about their city, their home, but how beautiful and how intense and profound was the description in a few words. And this activity was done, as you said, in 15 minutes. So, and this is exactly what, for example, through our social and emotional learning curriculum, we teach. So it's really, as you said at the beginning, I think we call it self-science, because we allow the students to think and feel and act just like an explorer, a researcher, a scientist. And so they feel really that they are part of that project. So I'm sure that they were living this experience this way.
Yes, and to leave you, I want to just share with you a reflection from one of the students who says, I have learned to be proud, optimistic and grateful for my home back in Kurdistan and my language through my artifact, my poem. I identify as Kurdish, but that wasn't really what I used to say, as I didn't really enjoy talking about my home language, as it felt at time very personal. However, because of the project, I had never felt more confident in expressing my language, thoughts and background. So really
Wow, that's fantastic.
to show that a transformative experience there. Yes, Stefania.
If I can add, because we were talking about well-being, and with this particular student, but there were other examples, what was really striking as the feeling of being out of place, which really needs to be worked on, especially at a delicate stage of life, such as adolescence. And this kind of transformation was really amazing, because if you don't feel good in yourself and in your body, it's like experiencing a self-displacement. And if this is not reconciled, then obviously that will lead to other problems. So feeling right in that particular place, I thought it was a fundamental first step, and something that, you know, can be talked about, because then talking about it is again really, really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And this is a perfect demonstration that art can really create that safe space. Thank you for highlighting this in the chat. Where students can feel at ease to discuss and comfortable in discussing their own identity, the place where we come from, their language, their struggles, their challenges, that maybe if you just ask the direct question, how do you feel? Or, you know, let's talk about your language, they won't answer as we feel or they feel they could. So this is the transcendent thinking that is really using other methodologies just like art, but can be something else also. But this demonstrates the power of poetry or storytelling and sharing the experience this way. So then I'm sure that you can build on what the students just shared and then create those communities that we were talking, and they can transfer this experience into their own society, their community, right? This is what we want, to transform classrooms just like laboratories where they can experience in a safe space what they then go and live in the society.
Yes, there was, sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but there was an experiment that was really amazing, and it was about opening up and being, listening, really listening to people. There was a school in particular which was very multicultural, and there were students who had, in the family, had like 5 or 6 different languages. So they talked about this, and also we asked students to talk to each other in their respective main language, and they didn't really understand each other's languages, but they kept talking to each other, trying to understand and trying to communicate. That was really amazing.
Amazing, really. So I don't know if we go now to the prompt and the interaction in the chat. Yes, Jessica?
Absolutely.
Great.
So I just want to share in the chat the link to a wiki that we created as an output of the project, just because in the workshops page, you can find the templates for the activities from which the prompt we're about to follow comes from, but also the activity that Stefania just mentioned, where students were asked to speak in their own language with each other. These are workshops that were created by our undergraduate students who worked on the project with us. So the age gap was, smaller than what it would have been if we had done it ourselves. So, and you could really see that worked in the students' favor. So in terms of the prompts, what I would like to propose is that we, in each of us, thinks independently about a definition of nature in our own words. So that's the first thing. Define nature in your own words. Make a note.
And can we then also put it in the chat, or
Yes,
we keep
please.
it for us? Okay,
Yeah,
so
we can start sharing it in the chat whenever we're
beautiful,
ready.
guys. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, pasta, as we say. Let's text in the chat what nature is for us. We should collect also all these answers, Jessica. And Helen, maybe you can use this for your poem, final poem.
Yes.
Also. Why not?
Okay, the next step is to now define what a borderless world means to us and share that in the chat. A borderless world. What does it's a difficult word for me to say. Borderless world. What does that look like to us? What does it mean to us?
And Anka, I saw that you raised your hand, but please just share your question in the chat, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Pluralism, diversity, inclusivity, unifying connection, freedom to move, sovereignty, peace. Brilliant, brilliant contributions. Okay, so the last step, please feel free to keep on adding to the chat. The last step is to think about how the two definitions that you provided, nature and borderless world, how they overlap and how one definition can help us think differently about the other. Again, this is an activity that one of our students included in the workshop that she conducted in 3 schools, and it was really interesting to see how students came up with different definitions for nature and borderless worlds, and how they came to question their definition of nature when they thought about it in this way through the lens of a borderless world. So overlap, increased chance of being with beings that are different from me, less restrictions on choice. I like that. Nature is free flowing, knows no borders. Exactly. Together they lead to acceptance. Very important point. I love the idea of bringing these together. Borderless being essential and fundamental, and nature being connected and joyous. Nature is God's creation, and so the planet Earth is his as well. So there should be no border. Being Italian, I was about to say amen to that. Well, thank you very much for engaging and contributing with your thoughts. These are actually really interesting and stimulating, thought-provoking answers.
Yeah. And also, again, this is another very simple activity, but very powerful that you can run in your schools, that you
Yeah.
can do at home with your kids or with friends. So, we are talking about youth and what they feel about maybe climate, the environment, nature, but we can do this. We are doing this as adults, as coaches or managers or parents or whoever role we are responsible for. But really, this is again a way of thinking and feeling about life, about environment that can grow our sensitivity towards communities without borders, as Jessica and Stefania shared with us, in thinking that we are part of the same environment. So nature, as someone also, I put it also, but we are all together. Someone was, I think Jessica, you were mentioning humans and more than human beings. So we are all there, all part of this beautiful planet and universe. So let's go back now to Helen and her part. And so I leave you the stage again.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, so I'm slightly conscious of time, so I'm not going to weave together all those delicious bits of contribution that we saw in the chat. But I think you get the idea that we could create a group poem by taking little bits and collaging them together. And, with the lovely prompts from Jessica and Stefania, to have those questions that can generate responses that then, you could even physically cut them up and get the students to sort of piece them together as a sort of collage group poem. So,
And Helen, we can also ask someone, any one of you in the chat, if you'd like to do this exercise and share in the chat while we are completing and, concluding this webinar, please go
great
ahead.
idea.
It would be fantastic.
Please do. That would be wonderful. Okay, so as I said earlier, I'm just going to talk about some projects I'm involved in and talk a little bit about my work and relate this to climate and youth well-being. So I'm going to talk about two particular projects, the Eco-Poeticon, which is an online showcase of global eco-poetries, and the Search for New Stories to Live By, which is a free online course, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. So just a little overview of what I'm going to talk about. The whole idea of doomerism can be quite big in the UK anyway, so I'm just going to touch into that. Then talk about the role of stories in our lives, my eco-poetic practice, the Eco-Poeticon, new stories to live by. So yeah, for Youth Against Doomerism. So I don't know how familiar this word is for people who are not based in the UK, but certainly, it's a word that sort of entered urban slang. This is an AI definition, and it's a mindset of despair and apathy fueled by a belief that global problems like climate change or political instability will inevitably lead to societal collapse or human extinction. So it's really interesting actually to get this AI definition about it. And it goes on to say this fatalistic outlook suggests that efforts to change the situation are futile, etc. So we can really see that this is a mindset that's been affected by negative stories. The belief, it's a story that global problems like climate change, are inevitably going to lead. We know we're on a trajectory, but, you know, none of us know what the future holds. So, you know, it's important when we, you know, connect with young people to give them, you know, opposite perspectives. And of course, there's so many amazing young people out there who are incredible agents of change. But not everybody has the privilege that maybe is necessary to be that kind of empowered individual out there, you know, working with NGOs, etc. And a lot of us, you know, need to just focus on what we can do in our own individual lives and our own communities. And so really a tool for empowerment is realizing the role of stories in our lives. And so I'm drawing here on the work of my colleague, Aaron Stibbe, who's a hugely inspiring person behind the whole idea of how stories work in our own lives, in our minds, and in our wider collective societies. But, you know, this idea that stories are cognitive structures and they really shape how we think. They, you know, the stories we live by are stories in the minds of multiple individuals across a culture. And then when we think about, you know, the stories we tell about our past, they're also a key to our present society. And I love this quote from the British historian E.H. Carr, who says, "There is no more significant pointer to the character of a society than the kind of history it writes or fails to write." And of course, we know that there are some grand narratives that have shaped our current society, notions of civilization, evolution, and progress. There's, you know, this deep meta narrative, so overarching narrative, you know, it's this idea that we're constantly on this pathway to greater progress. But yet, we can see now increasingly that this narrative has failed us. The old intertwining narratives of individualism, competition, extraction, progress. You know, we now live in a time fractured by pandemic, climate crisis, increasing inequality. It's obvious these old narratives aren't working. And we're in between narratives. We're a time when new narratives can begin to take root in the void. So this is all very much drawing on Aaron Stibbe's work. And as an eco-poet myself, Jessica, you mentioned earlier about eco-cultural identities. So my eco-cultural identity is as an eco-poet. I've identified as an eco-poet for about 20 years, and I've been steadily making a body of work. But it's not been an easy journey. I had a lot of pushback, people telling me, "Oh, why do you know, identify as an eco-poet? What's that all about?" And being very negative at times. So it's been an interesting journey, you know, for me, developing my work. And I'm very proud to tell you that I have a new book coming out next year. It'll be my fourth collection, The Last Lighthouse in Rising Seas. So I'm sure you can tell from the title that it's a book that's very much speaking to the climate crisis, the intersecting social and ecological calamities that we face. But it's trying to, you know, think about the stories that are being told and to bring themes of creative resistance, co-creation with the more than human world, and themes of sort of regeneration, reparation, and healing. So that's where I'm coming from personally as an artist, as a writer. And I've been very delighted to collaborate with this online showcase of global eco-poetries, which is being developed at the University of Gloucestershire. And the project's aim is to research and showcase poetry written with engaged ecological and social consciousness. And that is how we actually define eco-poetry for this project. There are many definitions of eco-poetry out there. It's quite sort of contested terrain, maybe partly because, you know, we're still evolving what it means. I'm sure as we evolve our consciousness, you know, so we're going to evolve how we understand eco-poetry. But anyway, this is a little flavor of the project. There's all these searchable themes that you can type in. So if you're working on a project with young people, you want poems about oceans, you could come to this online showcase, hit the button oceans, and then you'll have a bunch of poems from around the world that are about oceans. This is a little taster of some of the poets who are on here. We have poets from every inhabited continent around the world, from Papua New Guinea, from Nigeria, from China, Italy, India. And each poet has their own page with links to 3 poems that are on the Eco-Poeticon. There's also a bio about them, links to their socials. And every poet has to answer the question, if they're willing to, what are the ecological and social crises within your region or country? So this often offers really powerful testimony from poets about what they're experiencing. So that, you know, all of this could be really useful resources to draw on with your students. I'm now going to just briefly tell you about the Search for New Stories to Live By, which is a new course which has been developed and actually connects with the Eco-Poeticons, so they overlap. So it's a new free online course led by Professor of Narrative Ecology, Aaron Stibbe, and it's been made with European funding, and it's now just recently been adopted by the UN Sustainable Development Goals Learn platform. So it's really a very valuable tool for educators generally. And it's been made with people who are not necessarily native English speakers in mind. So we've tried to make it very accessible. So that's just some blurb about it. This is like the home page with some of there's different parts of the course, including creation stories, identity. We've been talking about identity. So the part that I contributed to making is called Eco-Poetic Activism. And so I'm just going to show you just a few more slides that relate to eco-poetic activism. So we define it as an evolving process of ethical leadership. The young people need adults to stand up and to demonstrate to them ethical leadership. And if you do the course, you'll find out a lot more about what that actually means. It critiques stories of unsustainability and creatively expresses new stories to live by. It may express a sense of the extended self, which is, you know, also the eco-cultural identity, feeling connected with our earth, with feeling our identity as human animals. And eco-poetic activism can incorporate stages of eco-narrative to witness destruction and injustice and to inspire transformation. And obviously this webinar is also talking about emotions, and emotions are very important to inspire action. So here's a very brief summary of ethical leadership, defining our own value system, our ecosophy, our ecological philosophy, being critically aware of the stories that shape our current unsustainable society, creating new stories to live by, sharing those stories in inspiring ways. And we talk about eco-narratives, narratives involving not only humans, you know, so because we live in a very anthropocentric society, a lot of the stories that are told are only about humans, but actually we need to widen it out to have eco-narratives that involve other species and the physical environment in interaction with each other. And my last few slides are just from the course, from the eco-poetic activism. So this really shows you how we've taken one of the poets from the Eco-Poeticon, Massimo D'Arcangelo from Italy, who's a personal friend of mine. I've translated his work. This is a poem about the Mersey. Earlier we had the River Mersey in Liverpool. This is the Mersey in Tuscany in Italy. You can see a photo of it there. And Massimo's poem demonstrates what we call eco-narrative structure. So we have these 3 phases of the narrative. The poem begins with a stage of equilibrium. We have this vision of the river, beautiful, hearing the sounds of the river flowing. But we also have an allusion to abandoned ruins, and this references empty rural houses and farms in Italy, and this hints at the degeneration to come. And also, but there's nevertheless this reference to the ceaseless cycle of water flowing, which suggests a state of primeval equilibrium. And then we move to a stage of degeneration. So this episode when the river was poisoned historically with a spill from the mine, iron, arsenic, cadmium spilled from a mine. And the poet says, I wasn't there, but those who lived through that time say, no people or animals traveled those reddish, stinking waters. So that direct speech provides a sense of testimony. We have the sensory engagement with those polluted waters. And then finally, at the end of the poem, we have this sense of restoration, regeneration. But the river was given a second chance where all was dead, deformed, disowned. Breath was restored to otter and newt. Now that river is animated. Children and dogs swim in clear waters, watch the fish returning upriver to the source. And that final image of the fish suggests the cycle of life beginning again, a return to equilibrium. So, you know, these are all resources on the New Stories to Live By. There's PowerPoints you can download, there's notes, there's exercises you can get the students to engage with. So I'd very much suggest taking a look. You can subscribe. And the final part of the of my presentation is just to reference, I haven't got time to go into it, but reference the emotions part, acknowledging that emotions is really a key way to inspire young people and people in general to take action. So thanks so much for listening. I hope that's been really useful. Those are the links, and I can put them in the chat for you, but obviously you'll have them on the presentation on the video. So I'm gonna
and I put them in the chat already, Helen.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for this sharing. It was fantastic, and I can say that I attended that course. So please do, all of you, the new stories we live by. I just wanted to, well, for myself, you know, just learn from that course. And absolutely, it's something, it's for free. It's you know, also as Alan shared, has been adopted by the UN and the SDGs. So it's something that is really contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you work with students or youth in general, please encourage them to attend. Language is really at the core of how we interact with people. Well, there's body language, but also the words that we use are part of this storytelling. And again, Helen and Stefania and Jessica shared with us so much today. And we put in the chat and we said that this anthropocentric world, I would say also Europe-centric, we are in Europe, but we very much hear and tell stories from Europe or from our perspective, how much more there's out there that we can listen to and that we can learn from, and also to expose our students to. So I hope this webinar is just a little contribution to this more inclusive way of living and experiencing the world. And so thank you, all of you, for being here. And maybe you can just put in the chat a final emotion, and also maybe one thing that you like to try. Maybe, you know, this course, maybe a project, an experiment, an action you'd like to use. So please maybe share in the chat. And in the meanwhile, I just want to say thank you again to Stefania, Helen. And I know Jessica had to go, but thank you to Jessica as well. Thank you.
And big thanks to you, Ilaria. It's so great to have you hosting us so well.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a wonderful conversation. So let me just read the final comments in the chat. Yes, feel relaxed and peaceful. So, well, this is already a success. I mean, especially
Somebody has said I will share the insight with some Finnish education officials.
ooh, amazing,
Wonderful.
wonderful, beautiful. Well, thank you again. And again, for all of you, there will be the recording coming very soon. And if you then Google the 6 Seconds Europe YouTube channel, you will find us there. So the recording will be uploaded. And so please share with other educators or coaches, managers, youth, whoever you'd like to. Okay, thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you
Great
so
night.
much, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, thank you.